Welcome to the commentary booth where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator Jamie Upps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by an impact feed technician who lists her favourite movie as A Nightmare on Elm Street and favourite TV show as Golden Girls. Welcome to the show, Karina Maybe.
Hello.
How's life?
It's going. I forgot we were doing this. So, go me. I had a conversation this morning with my nail tech. Shout out to Nat. And she knew we were going to be doing this. She just didn't know when we were going to be doing this. And clearly I did not either. But
did you apparently?
Yeah, we were both on that same page. So that was really cool. She sent me a really cool link to this super awesome, rad outfit that would have been perfect for today. However, it would not have been sent here in time, and it was over $100.
What the heck was it?
Well, today, folks, surprise, we are doing our review on Alien Romulus today. This is what this episode's about. She sent me a link for a full adult-size body costume of a Xenomorph. And had I had more time and limitless funding, this would be very different right now because it had the whole head attachment and the claw glove things. The only thing it did not have, I think, was like a retractable mouth, which would have been really fucking cool. But I just want you to know I was committed to buying that had I had the funding and the time.
You're a doofus.
Dude, it was so fucking cool. Like, I kind of want to buy it and mount it to my fucking wall. Like, just the headpiece. Like, or maybe, like, the arms if I could get, like, some fake, like, I don't know, mannequin arms and, like, slide the gloves on it or something. That'd be so fucking cool. Have it come out of the wall.
Wow.
Anyway, enough about me being a fangirl about franchises and shit.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, this week, we're hoping you'll be able to hear us scream from the vacuum of space as we review Alien Romulus, the newest entry into the Alien franchise. Set between the events of Alien from 1979 and Aliens from 1986, this new entry centers around a group of young space colonists who, while investigating a derelict space station, come face to face with a Xenomorph. Directed by Fede Alvarez of the 2013 Evil Dead, Don't Breathe 1 and 2, and the 2022 Texas Chainsaw Massacre fame. This is the 7th installment in the Alien franchise and serves as a standalone interquel. Starring Kaylee Spaney from Priscilla and Civil War fame, David Johnson as Andy, the android, and then a bunch of other random characters. The other major sort of name was Isabella Merced from Madame Web, and a certain CGI deep fake type character that has caused quite a bit of outrage.
Yeah, we'll get into that because this is you and me and our first reactions pretty much with each other, because usually when we watch something we're pretty open about, this was great about this was great about that. I have not told you anything about how I feel about this movie at all whatsoever.
Yeah, and I wouldn't tell you anything because I didn't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, the only thing I asked you was, am I going to be happy and does it link itself to the original franchise? And all you told me was, I think so, and yes. So, or slightly is what you said. So, that was all that you told me about this, and I went in completely blind other than that. I watched the trailer, I think maybe twice, and that's all I wanted to do. I didn't really want to deep dive into it all that much because I wanted to be surprised.
Yeah, like you said, it's linked to the originals and like Alien and Aliens, but very, very loosely. This is the sort of movie that you could, even if you hadn't ever seen an Alien movie before, you can watch this and be totally satisfied, totally understand what's happening. It's not like you're going into the 7th entry into a franchise missing all of the previous info.
Correct. Yeah. And it's so weird. They're coming up with like all these new terms that people didn't really use before, like interquel, whereas like before you had like just the prequels and the sequels, and even prequels weren't that big of a thing back in the day. But now you've got reboots and requels and all those other shenanigans. And I feel like people are just making up names now of things.
Yeah, I think if this had been set later in the timeline, it would have been a requel, but because it's in between two, and they
Two.
really wanted to make sure that people knew it was in between those two,
Mm-hmm.
they came up with interquel.
Yeah, which is strange, but hey, whatever. I mean, it for me, like, I mean, I'll be honest, I think it worked well. I mean, they did what they wanted to do, and they didn't like weigh heavily on origins or anything like that throughout the movie. They just kind of hinted at it here and there. So, like you said, you know, you could watch this movie by itself, never seen an alien movie, and be like, oh, this is a really cool alien movie.
Yep. Yeah, like there's plenty of sort of Easter eggs and touchstones for major fans,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not things that are in there as like really in your face. They're kind of just in there. The characters that cross over, they cross over fine. It's not sort of, oh, you needed to know what this person did. It's kind of just,
Yeah.
oh, that's a reference to that guy. Oh, that's a
Mm-hmm.
reference to this. They mention
Yep.
the uh, events of Alien, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
really delve into that. They kind of just say, oh, we got a message from the Nostromo, or nobody's heard from the Nostromo in some time. It's like, okay, cool. It's
Yeah.
stuff that if you are a big fan, you're like, oh, I know what that's talking about. But if you're not, it's okay. You don't miss anything by not knowing.
Right.
And I think that's where there's been a little bit of controversy. A lot of people are comparing this to Episode 7 of Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
because it very much does go, hey, what worked in these original Alien movies?
Mm-hmm.
Let's kind of do that again. And I wrote down a few of my notes were like, particularly the ending. It ends in basically the same way as the original Alien, with your central character going into the cryo chamber.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And even like having the logger off or whatever. I feel like all alien movies though for the most part end the same way, where they just like they could have just stopped after any of them. They didn't need to continue, and you know, if they did then that's great, but they didn't. They ended very well to where they don't have to continue if they don't want to.
Yep. And I think what's probably also really interesting about this is this was originally scheduled to be a Hulu release. So this was never supposed to get like a big theatrical release. And then just before they started filming, it all changed. So they're like, oh,
That's
wait,
very
no,
interesting.
we have confidence in, obviously they had confidence in the script. They had confidence in Fede's vision for it. And I imagine the storyboarding that he put together for it with some of what he wanted these shots to be.
Yeah.
And so like much like Prey, which was
Mm-hmm.
purely a streaming movie, which was a random like offshoot of the Predator movies.
Yep.
That's what this was kind of going to be. And then they switched it. But also because of that, the budget was only $80 million. This does not look like an $80 million movie. This looks like, this is better than like your $100 million, $150 million, like your big budget Marvel movies.
Oh
The
yeah.
cinematography, the visuals in this,
Yes.
fantastic. Like there are some, I even said it about the posters. The posters,
Yeah.
every single one,
Fantastic.
awesome artwork. Like if you took
Yeah,
away the
like
text and just put that artwork on a poster,
they're so fun.
framed, sweet.
Absolutely. Like I told you, I wanted. There was like a couple of them that I was like, dude, if I could, I would frame them and put them on my wall somewhere because they're just that fun. They really went all out. Even like the marketing and stuff. You had sent me, you know, the picture from when you went to go see it, and I was like, that's fucking cool. Like I wish
Oh yeah, the
we had that shit.
custom PC.
Yeah, it was really cool looking. Like, you know, they've really done like a lot of stuff. I was seeing briefly like where they had different um like people running around with fucking face huggers on them and
Yeah,
stuff
or
like
people
that
would come
through
out
the
of
city.
other movies and there'd be a person laying in the lobby with a face hugger on them.
Yeah, it's so fucking crazy. So the marketing in this is absolutely bonkers. And so the fact that they did decide to go the route of a theatrical release versus a streaming release, I think was a fantastic idea. And they really utilized every piece of their budget very well.
And it's so far it's paid off because it's currently Sunday in Australia, Saturday for you. They're already on track for over $100 million this weekend.
That's major. Especially when it's not something that's, your average like superhero movie. And Deadpool and Wolverine just came out not too long ago either, so that's still in the box office. There's several different things that it's up against, and the fact that it's
Minions,
doing, yeah, what is it, the It Ends With Us or
It
something
Ends
like
With
that,
Us, although
yeah.
that's very controversial at the moment as well.
Yeah, it's one of those movies though that people are actively going to go see them. So there is a lot of stuff out right now. And so the fact that it's doing so well is really great because, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very like niche movie. Like it's
Hmm.
sci-fi horror. It's not, oh, let's take my nan or my mom or my kids.
Yeah, and the fact that the previous Covenant and Prometheus were not as well received in the box office, it made me kind of nervous for this one. Not like because I was obviously going to go see it, but I didn't know how other people were going to react with it because they just weren't well received in the theaters.
But yeah, I think they've done a fantastic job. Like I said, it does not look like an $80 million movie. There are
Yeah.
countless scenes in this where you could take a still, and that's an awesome photo. Put
Oh
that
yeah.
up anyway.
Oh yeah. And they did a great job with mixing practical and computer effects too,
Mhm.
because I love the fact that they didn't stray from that.
Yeah, like the practical effects are awesome. That goes back to Fede Alvarez. He specifically sought out the special effects crew from Aliens to come and
Hmm.
work on this one and work on the creatures in particular. And then they built all these physical sets, practical creatures, miniatures for all of the like spaceships and stuff like that. So wherever possible, they used physical practical effects, and
Yeah.
then they would go in and do VFX to touch it up.
Yeah, there were some really impressive fucking shots in this film, like both practical and computer graphics. Like, I was just, there were certain things that I was just blown away with how well they were executed.
Yeah, I think for me, the one scene that really stands out, which was obviously a lot of visual effects after the filming,
Hmm.
is the zero gravity
Yes.
blood
Hmm.
sequence. That is
That was
such an
fantastic.
incredible action sequence.
I love it. If you go to see this movie for anything, fucking please go for just that one, like 10-15 minute, like spot at least, because it's fantastic.
Yeah, in terms of practical effects, the other thing that stood out to me were the face huggers.
Hmm.
Great. Weird that have we ever seen the like sacks on their bodies breathing in and out?
Yeah, the
Okay.
very first one when they bring Kane into the exam room, it is actively breathing a little
Okay.
bit.
I don't remember it because I
And
don't.
you see its tail like tighten around his neck and stuff.
Yeah,
I think in
I don't remember them
Alien
like
versus
really
Predator too.
focusing on like, oh look, it's breathing.
They
Whereas
don't I
this
don't
one,
think
they
they
really
focus it
call
a
it out.
lot. Yeah, I think on Alien versus Predator, it's more shown in that when they're doing like time jumps into the past. But again, it's nothing like super in depth where like they're really focusing on the fact that it's breathing and the person's breathing.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, they call that out in this. There were a few moments where you see the face huggers like scurrying around. I was like, oh, that looks obviously like as a fake practical effect.
Hmm.
But most of the practical effects I thought looked awesome.
Oh yeah,
Like
I
especially the
love
sets,
them.
the set design on this.
It's
Wow.
crazy.
And I loved the use of light and shadow as well. Like
Hmm.
Fede Alvarez, I think, and obviously he's uh, director of photography as well. He's DP. Like they are those two combined, they create some awesome stuff. Like all of the visuals in this, great. Like just like we said, there are single frame shots of someone standing there and the way the lighting interacts and like creates these dark
Yes.
spaces that you can still kind of see into, but you kind of like, I don't know kind of what's in the shadows there.
Mhm.
Captures the feeling that we got from the original Alien, where there are action sequences in this which they pull from, like they've clearly pulled from the two that worked really well. You've got
Yes.
the tension, the dread from
Mhm.
Alien, and then from Aliens, you pull in a few action sequences to really bring the energy up in the movie and give you those
Yes.
oh shit moments.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I love the fact that they were able to still kind of keep true to the original ways of doing it, where, you can't tell if that wall actually is just a stiff wall or if there's something that's like attached to it that's just waiting to like pop out. That is my favorite thing that they do in all of these movies is how they can integrate the alien's head with like, you know, air ducts essentially or
Mhm.
for the walls.
Speaking of the alien being integrated into the wall,
Mhm.
there was one scene that I wrote down, the kind of vagina wall.
Ugh.
That bit was gross.
Oh my god, it's like, yeah, no, oh, and it got prodded too, which was even more disgusting. Like, and it's just like spitting out little
Yeah,
acid.
yeah.
Oh,
I wrote down the gross vagina like one that kills one of the characters with acid. Extremely
yeah,
disturbing.
it was very strange. It's like it was, yeah, that was a lot. There,
Yeah.
there's a couple of moments that made me kind of like cringe, like when they like when you see like the tube essentially of a face hugger and like how
Oh, when
deep
they
that thing
pull it
in. Oh,
off. Yeah,
oh yeah.
that's yeah, I thought they did a great job of expanding the lore as well.
Yep.
Like I mentioned, we see them and they really highlight that, oh look, the face hugger has these breathing sacs
Hmm.
that are kind of pushing oxygen into the victim.
Yep.
And then they also talk about how they don't have eyes, so
Hmm.
they sense you through heat and sound.
Right.
And that was another cool sequence where they're like, don't fucking, you gotta keep you calm so that your body temperature doesn't rise or drop and
Yeah.
all of that sort of stuff. And that was cool until like old mate just starts talking on the radio. I'm like, bro, we said shut up.
Yeah. Like, why would you do that? Why?
Yeah, so that was weird. The chest
Yeah.
burster seems to develop really, really rapidly in this one.
Hmm.
Like she has the face hugger on her for a couple of minutes and then 5 minutes later it's ready to come out. Like, what?
Yeah. It didn't even incubate that long.
Yeah. I was like, okay, that seems very fast, but whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and then ultimately the xenomorph reveal is awesome as well when it like comes out of
Actually comes out of the
comes out of the
vagina.
wall and stuff and like, oh Jesus. And then instead of it
Yeah.
just
It's
being
creepy.
one, there's a lot. Like, holy
Yeah, there's
shit.
tons of them. And that was very reminiscent for me and nostalgic of Aliens because, they find like the entire nest and there's just like they're coming out of everywhere in that one. So this was very reminiscent of that and I loved it for that.
Yep. And like we said, like it does a great job of building the tension, teasing imminent danger as well on
Mhm.
the Romulus and Remus space stations. Because like we
Yes.
see an a face hugger leg like in the lab, like it's just sitting there on a table. Uh,
Mhm.
we catch a glimpse of a hole, like an acid hole had been burnt through the floor. And then we
Yep.
find the synth that is melted by acid. And like I said, that's very much in tune with the OG Alien, where it takes a while before anything really major happens. But
Yep.
in that whole time, you're learning about these characters, you're learning about the space station, and you're getting all of these glimpses of something's not right here. So by the
Yeah.
time that action sequence does kick in, you're like, okay, shit's about to get real.
Yeah, I do also appreciate that they did maintain the pacing of this movie, just like all the other ones, where it was that slow burn at the beginning, where you did take almost that first like, I don't know what, 45 minutes probably, before anything crazy actually happened, just so you can get an idea of what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're getting up there. And you actually end up caring about the characters a little bit. So Alien has always done that, and I'm really grateful that they did that again with this and didn't stray from that.
And then, like, it doesn't, once the face huggers get heated up and come out of their sacks and start attacking, we have that first attack sequence. That's pretty hectic. And
Yeah.
then we calm back down again. We let that sit
Mm-hmm.
before we get into later down the line. The Xenomorph comes out, and then you're like,
Yeah.
okay. And then it ramps up, and then we get to the conclusion.
Yep.
It's got that up and down pace from the original, which is good.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
So the synth that I mentioned, this is the very controversial part. Like, there's some people that love it. I enjoyed it because it does tie you back with the original, where they've taken Ian Holmes' face and put it onto a synth, because this new synth that we find on the Romulus is of the same model. So it's obviously just like, they're robots. They're all going to look the same. So they've put his face on it. It isn't the best. Like, it is very deep fake. Yeah, like, it's just.
It's like when they
I can
took
tell that's not real.
Yeah, it's kind of like when they did the new Star Wars films and they put Peter Cushing's in it and Carrie Fisher after she passed away. It was that very kind of similar vibe for me. I did, however, appreciate that he was in there, and I was on the same thought process as you. Is these are the synths, and they are that particular model, so they're all going to look exactly like him, kind of like Terminator. All the Terminator machines look the fucking same too, like the robots. So I appreciate that. Yeah, the CJ was not a favorite thing in the world. But again, it was kind of like that nostalgic tie back for me, and I really liked it. And just the fact that you can tell that that particular model was a dick in the first one and is still a fucking, all about the corporation asshole in the second one, or in this one is, it's a continuing kind of thing.
Yeah, you mentioned that Peter Cushing one from Star Wars. They were so close to getting that perfect too. Like, when they only showed his face in the reflection on the glass, I was like,
Yeah, it
sweet,
was
you did it.
perfect.
You made it perfect. And then the camera, then he turns around and it shows his face. I'm like, you ruined it.
Yep.
And they kind of do that here, where if
Yeah.
we'd only seen Ian Holmes' face on the monitors, because they're like
the grainy
old school,
monitors.
grainy, green monitors, fine.
Yep.
But the fact that we see a physical synth sitting on a table and then his face is on it, I'm like, that's the part.
And he crawls
That's the part
too.
where it gets to uncanny valley territory, where it's like, yeah, it looks like him, but it's not quite right.
Not. Yeah, like they did it to the extreme where, like the synth is even crawling across the fucking desk at one point, and I'm just like, yeah. But like it was kind of, I feel like it wasn't unnecessary, and I do like the fact that like they kept him like that, because it's the same. Yeah, it's a good nod to the original with it keeping the same model, and like they're all malfunctioning. That's how I look at it, is that they're just a really bad malfunctioning model.
Yeah, except they're really, like, they're kind of not.
They are, but they're not, like, they're not
because,
humane. They're not meant to be humane. They're meant to be all about the corporation.
yeah, because their
Yeah,
primary directive that they've been given is
the organism.
protect the genetic samples from the Xenomorph and do what's best for the company. And that's what they do. They don't give two shits about anyone else.
No.
And then on the flip side, you have Andy, who is Rain, Kaylee Spaney's character, her android, who has been programmed by her father to basically act as her brother. And his programming is a little bit broken. So when we first meet him, he's kind of almost like special needs.
Yeah.
So he needs to be looked after, but he's also there to protect Rain. And his primary directive is do what's best for Rain. And he does that until they put the chip in him, and then he flips. And David Johnson's performance in both of those aspects is awesome.
Absolutely. He is fantastic. Like, legit flipped a switch. And it was just so interesting.
Both of them are super believable.
Yeah, it was just very interesting to see him go from like this timid, shy character who's just kind of going with the flow of things because that's what Rain wants. And then immediately it's like when he reboots and resets with the new disc in him, it's like, oh, that's, yeah, we're just completely different now.
And then, yeah, they eventually get that out of him and he sort of starts to come back, but it's
Hmm.
a slow transition back as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting. And what's really cool for me, I think, is the fact that when Andy in the beginning is so humane and like caring about Rain, it made me think of Bishop in
Mhm.
Aliens because Bishop is exactly like that, where he is more human. So I really like that because it is kind of like a nice contrast.
I imagine you also liked his jokes.
I love his dad jokes. They're fantastic. They are like the best ever. I love it.
And you,
It reminded me of
as soon as I was watching, I was like, oh my God, Karina's going to love this character.
it reminded me of Joel and Ellie when Ellie has her bad jokes in Last of Us.
Hmm.
Like it's the best things ever. They're great.
On that front, The Last of Us TV show really missed a beat by not casting Kaylee Spaney as Ellie.
She would have been really good.
She looks exactly like her. It's freaking.
It's very strange. Maybe she was just too old.
She's younger than. Um,
Oh, is she?
I'm
Mm.
pretty sure.
Oh, I don't know how old people are, but yes, no, it is a very uncanny resemblance.
Kaylee Spaney is 26,
Oh,
and Bella Ramsey's only 20.
oh, see,
God damn,
so
Bella
maybe they.
Ramsey's crazy young for how much stuff she's been in.
Yeah, I feel really
Kay-
unaccomplished in my life.
Kaylee Spaney looks younger, I think.
Maybe,
I don't
yeah.
know. She
Bella
just
Ramsey
looks
has
really
like a
young.
very unique face. But she would have been good, like if Bella Ramsey ever like outgrows her role as Ellie. She could play like an older Ellie, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I just realized I share a birthday with one of those people.
Ow, look at you, fancy
Kaylee
pants.
Spaney, 24th of July, 1998.
How old do you feel now?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway,
Um,
enough about how ancient we both fucking are, because we're we're nowhere near their fame, and we're way older.
yep. Uh, Also, on the idea of linking these and expanding the lore, so the movie opens where they capture that mysterious space rock, and you're like, what the heck's going in here? It's salvaged. Later, come to
Mm-hmm.
realize it's basically the fossilized xenomorph from the original Alien
Mm-hmm.
from the
Yep.
Nostromo, and they kind of allude to that fact of, oh, we went out because we hadn't heard from the Nostromo, we went to find it, and this is the only thing we came back with.
Yep.
And then we jump to the space colony mining camp, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which is perpetually in darkness. What a place to live! It's like living at the North
Dude.
Pole in winter.
It was such a depressing spot to look at, and they're just everybody's in poverty, and you can really tell that the company is just shit
Well,
because of the way that everybody's treated.
yeah, like the Weyland Yutani Corporation, which everyone just refers to as Wayu, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
They're like employees, I guess, who are under like these strict contracts. I guess because it's so hard to get from place to place.
Yeah.
Um, but these contracts are so strict that they essentially become prisoners because you can't leave until you complete your requisite
Contract.
hours, and then they just arbitrarily increase Rain's hours that she has to complete, basically doubling it, saying, "Oh yeah, you now have to do 2,400 hours,"
Yep.
which is going to take her another 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, 24,000 hours, I think they said.
Yeah, 24,000. Yeah. It was a big old fuck you from
Yeah,
the
like,
company to
oh
her.
yeah,
Just
I completed my hours. I'm ready to get my leave pass and get off this godforsaken planet with my
no.
Android. And no, you have to double that. You've got another 5 or 6 years here, and it's like, and people just seemingly just die there all the time because it's
Yeah.
a dangerous mining situation. It's like, oh, that's cool. So, which then builds into why Rain and her friends are so willing to. There's this random space station that's like disused. No one seems to want to go. No one's
Yeah.
acknowledging that it's even up there.
Nope.
Let's go up there and use it. And I
Yeah.
don't think they even realize it's a space station until they get there. They think it's like a ship that they can just jump on
Yeah.
and take off. And then they get there like, that's bigger than a ship. That is a giant ass twin space station.
Yeah, like, oh, we did not know what we were getting ourselves into. This is different.
Are you a trading card collector or a fan of Australian pro wrestling? If so, you're not going to want to miss out on the limited edition Australian wrestling cards. Each set includes 50 packs of 10 cards, including some of the country's top wrestling talents like Robbie Eagles, Shane Haste, Madison Eagles, Hartley Jackson, and they have Shaza McKenzie listed, although she is not a favorite. The velocities, and a lot more. There's wrestlers, referees, announcers, commentators that are featured, giving you a full appreciation of the Australian independent scene. The cards sold out a lot faster because cards are hot right now, as I'm sure Jeremy Lambert will tell you. But you can order your Australian wrestling cards now at Pario Magazine. That's PARIO magazine.com.au/AUS WRES cards. Follow Australian Wrestling Cards on social media at AusResCards for updates. Join the hundreds of fans who have already discovered the excitement of Australian wrestling cards.
And then the other link that I noted from this to the previous ones, robot racism is alive and well on this space colony at this time.
Yeah. There's a lot of that in all of this franchise. Like, you just end up hating robots, but this is like the one movies aside from Aliens where like I don't hate the android necessarily, but everybody else does.
Yeah, like there's the Bjorn character. He's an asshole to Andy, and like in the previous ones, people were very sort of, oh shit, the android. Fuck the androids. They just do whatever they want. And then you later find out why this Bjorn character is so anti-Sith because of what happened with his mother and how the android made a calculation of these three people can die to save 20 or 30. Yeah, that's a overall plus.
Yeah, so, it's really rough.
Not only do they tie this movie into the previous films, they've taken inspiration and tied into the Colonial Marines and Alien Isolation games as well, which was pretty interesting, particularly with the gun that they arm themselves with, the guns that have crazy aim assist. I thought that was a fun little joke.
That was fun. Like
like that. The lore dump about the Colonial Marines and how the guns and all that work, I thought that was a bit like, okay, a bit heavy-handed on the exposition there. Like we could have... I don't think we needed to be told about the auto-aim because later they show it in action and it's very clearly that the little screen has the target thing on it, and when it goes and focuses on the alien, then the gun switches. I don't think we then needed the exposition earlier to explain that because you see it in effect and it's pretty clear of what's happening.
Yes. I also I appreciate them tying this in with Prometheus slightly.
Oh, with the serum that is called Prometheus?
Yeah, that like it is just the black goo extracted from that, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is now just confirmed that they are all in the same franchise. Like anybody who had any doubts about them, any being connected at all, like that's gone out the window. They're definitely connected now. So I do appreciate that, and the fact that they're still trying to like perfect the organism by even just like getting that liquid onto the next route.
Yeah, because like we learned that the Romulus and Remus, which is one big space station that's essentially split into two, they're both like genetic labs.
Yep.
And they're trying to take the DNA from the Xenomorph to create like a medicine, like a serum that will then heal any sort of injuries and stuff and make humanity better.
Yeah.
But we see crazy part where they sit down, they watch the footage of I think it was a dead mouse get injected and then it comes back to life. but they don't stay till the end of the clip. And we watched that
Yeah,
clip,
it's
which
fucking nuts.
is another one of these like, oh, we're going to show you and tease what's going to happen later. So
Yeah,
we see that the mouse ends up just mutating and basically exploding and dying.
it's nuts.
So that foreshadows what then comes later, and that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was just it's so much this was such a wild ride, like seeing like all the little like nods to the different movies, whether it be like direct links to it and mentioning things, or whether it just be like things that mirror the previous films that have come out, like certain situations that have mirrored it. It was just perfection in certain spots.
Yeah, like we've seen in like Prometheus and the previous movies, the different iterations of the xenomorph as well. And then in this one, after the Prometheus serum is used, we get another new alien iteration. What did you think of
Mhm.
the third act of this movie with the new
Weird
xenomorph?
the new baby. Stop, buddy. Sorry. So I have mixed feelings about this new concept of said organism. It looked, it reminded me of the Prometheus engineers, just on a whole different scale. Like their face looks like the engineers from Prometheus. The body is the size of a fucking normal xenomorph, and then it has like a little baby demon tail that don't do nothing yet. It just kind of wiggles like a puppy tail. It's weird.
Mhm.
The weird holes in the back of it, I don't know if that's supposed to be like venting or not. Um, it was very strange. I'm not a fan of it. I feel like it was disproportioned. I feel like they made it a little bit too tall to make it believable. I think if they had downsized it just a little bit, it wouldn't have been so bad.
I don't know. Either way, it's freaking
It's fucking
disturbing.
weird. It's fucking weird looking. The way that it was birthed was fucking traumatizing.
And then the breastfeeding scene.
I will say I'm
There's a
glad that
lot of
that wasn't like,
disturbing elements about that particular character.
I feel like that sequence could have been a lot worse. I'm really glad that it was kind of like at an angle that it happened at, because if they had just like full blown like shown it just like attaching to the titty, I would have been like, oh, no.
Yeah, it reminded me of what was that movie from? Was it last year?
What, Barbarian? Where she looks really
Yeah,
wonky?
that
Yes.
one.
I'm so glad that we
the
had that
mother demon
same thought.
barbarian. I was like, this is gross.
That's literally what I thought of in my head. I was just like, this is what? So yeah, that was not enjoyable to watch. We'll put it that way. I do have to say though, going back to like the beginning of this film and the opening part, well, not opening, but like the first part of like the face huggers, I really appreciate how they had them like cryovac sealed in these fucking like pouches, just
Mhm.
ready to go. Like that was so interesting how they were just like, how are we going to extract them? We're going to extract them, or we're going to keep them alive and then just put them in little sacks to like thaw out.
Yeah, I think like they had them in there and they were keeping that room at a low temperature because
Yeah.
that kind of puts them into like a dormant hibernation state where they could just go in and, I imagine, stick a needle in and suck out what they needed when they needed without being in danger.
Yep.
And then when they pull the cryo fuel out, it immediately starts to heat that room up, and then they all wake up and I was like, oh, yep, that's pretty
That was nuts.
terrifying.
Yeah, I just I don't want to I don't want to tread too much on that stupid baby part, because that big baby thing was just so grody. And
It's
how quickly it fucking
absolutely
evolved.
it's a moment. Like it's a oh shit. Like there's very distinct like acts in this movie. There's the opening act, which is very slow, methodical, learn about these characters, form an attachment to these characters.
Yeah.
Lots of foreshadowing, like we are told we encounter the zero gravity there for a couple of seconds. And like I said, we see little hints to, oh, there's a face hugger leg, there's this, and this.
Yeah.
And then there's the second act, which is kind of where the shit hits the fan and the face hugger's awake, the xenomorph's awake. a bunch of people die, and then we calm back down. And then the third act, we get the new mutant xenomorph human hybrid
Human
thing.
thing. Yeah.
And then we get the conclusion. But yeah, I loved how it does have those waves. It does have the foreshadowing. And then like it loops back to, because in that opening sequence, when Rain goes to get her leave ticket to leave that planet, the lady in the booth says, "I'm sorry, I must deny your petition because now you have to do
Yeah.
these hours." And then at the end, that's the line that Rain drops as she kills the hybrid monster thing. Like,
Yeah.
"I'm sorry, but I must deny your petition." And I was like, oh, that's kind of dorky, but
Yeah.
not unexpected.
I love that. I love when Rain and Andy get stuck and they're trying to open the door, and like you see the android just like pop up at the screen, and he says like there are so many different nods to the original films, and he says like, "I'm not gonna lie to you about your odds, but you have my sympathies." I'm just like, oh boy. The only thing I can say that I was very annoyed with, and not necessarily like annoyed, but just kind of mad, is that Andy uses fucking Ripley's line, and I'm just like, no, that's Ripley's line from Aliens. You can't use that. So I got really mad about it. When they're in the elevator shaft and he like shoots down the xenomorph and he says, "Get away from her," and then he like finishes it right after and says, "You bitch." I'm like,
Yep.
that's Ripley's line. You can't use that line. Like that was
Yeah,
the
but I
only
think
thing I was really mad
that's
about.
definitely in there as a like, hey, you know where this
I
is.
know, but I was so mad about it. But then on the in that same like sequence, like there's even a nod to Alien 3 where like she's face to face with the xenomorph, and
Mhm.
it's almost like a complete replica of Ripley being with it. So yeah, there was just but yeah, that line made me kind of mad because it's Ripley's line, not anybody else's line. No one says it like she does.
Mm. Yeah, that scene has the blue lighting. Like the
Oh, that's so
lighting,
weird.
the lighting in it's so cool. Like there's the dark sort of grays and the yellow lighting on the colony, and then like in the
Mm-hmm.
space station, there's some yellow scenes as well. But then you get like red lighting, and then you get the blue lighting, and like there's so many shots. And like it's just so pretty to look at. Like you could turn the sound off and just watch it and just take in like the visuals and just be so blown away by the visuals of this movie.
Yeah. I love the red flares that they use throughout this entire film. Like that is such a fun way of lighting up areas, and like the really low like lanterns that they're using and stuff.
Mhm.
I appreciate that so much because it's just so much better than having everything like in your face, like everything's clean and pristine, because clearly it is not.
Oh yeah, it's so good that they don't get onto that space station, make their way to the control room, and like flick a power switch, and everything's just like in this stark, bright white lighting. It's all like
Mm-hmm.
it's all like in emergency lighting mode, where it's like very limited lights, like just reds and
Yes.
blues and stuff, like just very basic lighting, just enough that you can see but not see everything.
Right.
And then the gore, there are some pretty gory moments in this, but very limited. But the moments that are there, very gory.
They are very in your face. But I'm not mad about it. It's fun. It's fun to see how they've evolved certain like, splatter sequences and stuff like that. These movies never really relied on gore factor being a thing. When it did happen, it wasn't super frequently, but it was very well done. And I think that they continue that in this film as well.
And like the chest burster has another touch callback to the original, where it's like struggling to get through her shirt too. So
Mm-hmm.
that was cool. And then there's not an over reliance on jump scares either. There are some that are like
No.
pretty goddamn intense, but it's not every 10 seconds there's this big crazy jump scare. It's kind of like you're there, you're sitting there, and you might see something move in, like we said, in that lighting and the weird shadow play in the background. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was an alien or if that was just like the way the shadows and the lighting moved.
Yeah, I went and saw this with my mom. My mom is usually the person who like jumps at everything, regardless if it's like a horror movie or not. She's usually pretty like physical with it, as in like she smacks who's ever next to her, unfortunately. That was me today. When I went to go see this with her, and I felt really bad because there is a scene where like there is where I jumped because of a face hugger, and I literally smacked my mom on her arm, and she was just like, "You good?"
Is that
And
the
I was just
one
like,
near the end?
no, it was. I think it was when they were like looking through the glass or something like that, and it just like slapped onto
Oh,
the
it tries to
glass door.
smash into the glass. Yeah,
Yeah, and I was just like, "Yep, I'm good. I'm good."
yeah. There's some good ones in there. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I noted down was that Fede took inspiration from the Alien Isolation game from 2014 after he played that. He said he really loved the use of like the phones in that game, as like they were the checkpoints and the save points. Every time you saw one,
Hmm.
you knew something fucked up was about to happen because you were about to save and then go into a room, and then you'd have to get through like this action sequence.
Shit.
And they use that here as well.
Yeah.
So if you go back and rewatch this, if you look in the background, a lot of the times, like just before there's something about to happen, so whenever danger's imminent, there'll be a phone somewhere in the shot.
Hmm.
And I thought that's a really cool like little touchstone that it's a nothing thing. Like if you're not looking for it, you're not going to see it. But if you
Right.
are then going back and looking for it, it's going to be really cool to be like, oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's so much fun. I can't. It was a lot of fun. I would probably go back and see it again, honestly, just to like have fun again. Like if I had nothing to do on the weekend and I was still like playing or whatever, I'd probably go see it again just because it was one of those fun kind of films to see and on the big screen and get like that whole effect. The zero gravity shots throughout this entire film were so well filmed that I felt like I was spinning at points. So I would
Mhm.
probably just go back and re-see it for those shots alone.
Yeah, that'd be one of those ones that'd be pretty hectic in 40x.
Dude, I really wanted to see that. This was playing in one of the IMAX theaters, not too far away, and I wanted to do it. I just didn't want to drop the money on it because it's not a cheap ticket. But I feel like this would be one of those crazy ones to watch in IMAX with just those sequences alone.
Yeah, I don't think it fully utilizes IMAX though.
No, so that's another thing. Like when I go to see an IMAX film, which I still have not ever seen a film in IMAX, I want it to be a movie that was filmed for IMAX, not one that is
Yeah,
just like shoved into an IMAX theater for fun.
yeah. Yeah, it's shown in 1.9 to 1 aspect ratio. So it offers
Mm,
a bit more screen information at the top and bottom, but not necessarily the edges.
crazy. Yeah.
It's not filmed in widescreen IMAX 70 millimeter.
Yeah. So yeah, like when I go to see an IMAX film eventually, it'll be one that was filmed for that. But I do feel like this is worth seeing on a large scale just because you do get that like you are immersed into that kind of feeling, or at least I felt that way, like you're spinning in a zero gravity chamber almost.
Yeah, and there's like lots of shots where the character might be central in the frame, but they're not filling the frame. Like there's a lot of empty space, which is a typical like horror movie thing where they have all this empty space. So you can do that light and shadow play of, oh, what's that in the background? Like you're not necessarily focused on the person in the frame. A lot of the
Right.
time in horror, I'm looking at what's in the background, what's happening over here. So
Yeah.
I found a lot of the time with horror, you kind of have to watch it a couple of times so that you can watch the character in one viewing,
Hmm.
and then later you're looking in the background to try and see the hints of the danger that's present as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Uh, one of the last things I want to talk about is, do they give Fede Alvarez another shot at a sequel to this or another entry into the franchise?
I don't know. So there's a lot of scuttlebutt online about an Alien series coming out, not by that director, obviously, but
Oh
there
yeah,
is
Alien
rumored to be an
Earth.
Alien. Yeah, Alien Earth is supposed to be happening.
It is.
That is actually
Did you not get the teaser?
no, I did not. Did I not
Yeah,
stay for it?
it must be. I don't know like where it's playing, but I've seen there is a clip. I've sent it to you on Twitter where
Okay.
they at some cinemas,
Mhm.
they are playing this clip, which is a teaser for the Alien Earth FX show,
Okay.
which is due out
So
next year. So that looks awesome. That sounds really
that
cool.
is
Like the idea of a xenomorph on Earth.
yeah, and from what I gathered, because I saw someone post like a timeline for the entire franchise, including Prometheus and Covenant, and Alien Earth is supposed to predate Prometheus in the timeline that I saw. I don't know how that works. I don't know if it's accurate or not.
Yeah, because
But
in Prometheus they've never heard of it before, so that is weird.
right. So I don't know if it's just someone got something wonky, if it's just the year that it's supposed to be, and maybe something's happening on one planet and then Prometheus took place on another planet. Regardless, though, I don't know if we necessarily need another sequel. Necessarily, I would like
Okay, so
for
Alien is set 30 years before the events of 1979's Alien.
okay. So then it falls in between. Yeah. I'm hoping just because I feel like there was supposed to be if I'm not mistaken, there was supposed to be a sequel to Covenant, and it never happened. I'm hoping that this is either that gap breach, or they do possibly that movie.
Yeah,
But
like
we'll
that's what
see.
this Alien Earth would be. It would be filling up
Yeah.
that gap.
Which, I mean, to be fair, the way that all of these ended, and we've talked about it before, the way that any of these end, you don't necessarily need a bridge to any of them because they end very well and you can just like, guess what happened beforehand. But yeah, I don't think it's necessary to have necessarily another reboot, requel, interquel, whatever the fuck you want to call it there. Just because, when they did Aliens and then Alien 3 started, they found Ripley and Newt's bodies in the cryo freeze and stuff like that. So that was pretty much like a bam bam in order kind of thing.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't
Unless they
think we need another entry from him.
Mm-mm.
But I'm not going to deny it if he wants one because he clearly understands the franchise. He's obviously a fan of the franchise. He
Yeah,
did a great job. I would not be
he
against him
did.
doing another one. He's also mentioned wanting to do uh, an a crossover with Prey.
That'd
So
be interesting.
he wants to do like an Alien and like a new version of Alien versus Predator, but with like him and is it Dan Trachtenberg? Yeah, so he wants to do Alien versus Predator
Mm-hmm.
for the modern age, where he directs
Hmm.
half and Dan Trachtenberg directs half because he did Prey.
Yeah,
So
I
have them
think.
come together and work together because I think both of their movies are great.
Yeah, that would be actually that concept would be really fun because if they kept it into like the same timeline as Prey and like that same kind of like era, then that would be a really great tie-in with like the beginning of Alien versus Predator because that took place. They did flashbacks of like the Mayans in that one,
Hmm.
and how they had been going since beforehand. So, that would be interesting to see if they just decided to kind of do a prequel to Alien versus Predator. I don't know.
Yeah,
It'd be
that'd be-
interesting. But yeah, unless he wants to redo whatchamacallit, um the alien film that we shall not speak of.
Resurrection or whatever.
Yeah, Resurrection. If he wants to do like a different shot of Resurrection, like redo that one, I'd be pretty cool with that because truth be told, I think this random human baby xenomorph that was at the end of Romulus looked better than than that alien
Yeah,
hybrid.
yeah. So yeah, I would love to see Alien versus Predator for a modern era, and yeah,
Hmm.
Fede Alvarez directs all the Alien parts. Dan Trachtenberg directs all the Predator parts, and then
That'd be pretty cool.
the second part of the film where they come together, they work together to put together because they both have a great vision. They both have like the way they design framing and stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think that'd be a really cool movie, and like Alien versus Predator is it's a wacky movie, but a lot of people love it. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
I
people's
mean,
like entry into the franchise these days.
that was your entry into the franchise, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I
Because
was
it
just
came
like,
out
that's
like once I was a bit
insane.
older. So
Yeah, and see, for me, like I grew up watching all the originals, and then when Alien versus Predator came out, it was just like another franchise or like another spin-off series that my mom and I were able to continue bonding over because she introduced me to all these films. But like it was nothing that I was like super passionate about, but it was fun. My whole hope, honestly, when Prey came out originally, is that they were going to try and do a reboot of Predator because the newer Predator movies that had come out were just not the greatest. But
yeah,
who
I'm kind of
knows? I
shocked
mean,
that there hasn't been a follow up to that because that was great.
yeah, yeah, it was. Prey was really good. It was kind of like a redeeming film from the other Predators movies that came out, like the one with Adrian Brody and shit.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like they kind of they earned a sequel to Prey
yeah.
and doing a theatrical release.
Hmm. So I don't know. Maybe Romulus, with how well it does, will kind of maybe jumpstart a second glance at both of the franchises. Who knows? But I'm keen for it anyway because I'll be the one of the first people in the theater to go and see any Alien or Predator movie because I'm a fucking weirdo. But
So then the final thing, before we rate this movie, where would you put it in a rankings for the Alien films?
oh, from like my favorites.
In terms of, yeah, which ones you think are the best to the worst of the
Oh,
7 that we have so far?
let's see. So we're going with, for me, it's Alien, Aliens, Romulus,
Hmm.
and then I actually put, yeah, yeah, Prometheus, Covenant, and then Alien 3, and then Alien Resurrection at the very end.
That's exactly my list.
Yeah. It was a toss up for me because I love Prometheus and Covenant um like equally, but I feel like without Prometheus, obviously Covenant wouldn't make sense. So, and I love the fact that like Covenant was such a great continuation with David's story, but
Yeah, I think, yeah, in terms of like films, I'd probably put um, Covenant above. Wait, which one's second?
Covenant second, Prometheus came out first.
Yes, I think I would put Covenant above Prometheus, but like you said, without the
Prometheus, you can't
Prometheus,
have the other.
you can't have the other. It wouldn't make sense. So,
Yeah. But yeah,
and
that's
then
my order.
in terms of a rating for Romulus, obviously since it was third on your list, I imagine it's got a pretty high rating.
Romulus, for me, I gave it like I think I'll give it like a 4.5. I think the only thing that really dumbed it down for me was that unnecessary Ian Holm CG moment. But other than that, the storyline's great. The effects are fantastic, and they did a great job of throwing little Easter eggs in there for people who have loved this franchise, but they didn't overpower it with making you have to see any of them prior to seeing this. So yeah, I love Romulus. I'd go see it again. It's fantastic, and from what I saw, it got like one of the highest debut ratings on Rotten Tomatoes for a film of its quality.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I gave this a 4 out of 5. Really enjoyed it. Loved the cinematography. Loved the storyline. Not a huge fan of that final act with the human xenomorph hybrid. Bit gross, bit weird. I think it just took it a little bit too far in terms of outrageousness. Up
Mm-hmm.
until that moment, I was fully on board, 5
Sold.
out of 5, and then it just went, oh, okay, a little bit too far. So
Yeah.
dragged it back. But otherwise, yeah, like we said, easily the third best Alien franchise movie.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like you can't. The first two Alien films are just untouchable in my book. They'll always be in the top spots of that entire genre because it's such a strange and hybrid genre. It's not horror, it's not sci-fi. It's a horror sci-fi, and that's why it falls into its own category for me.
Yeah, and the fact that really the only sort of crazy, outrageous thing this one does is that final act with the hybrid. Up until then, it's very predictable, very sort of what you expect, pulling
Mhm.
the best bits from the previous entries. It's
Yeah.
not really reinventing the wheel, and then it just kind of breaks a little bit at the end. But yeah,
Yeah.
4 out of 5. Very good. Definitely go and check it out. And I'm glad it's doing well as well.
Yes. Yes. I was so afraid that it wasn't going to do well because most sci-fi films do not do that great. And like you said, it's a niche franchise. Not everybody is on board with it. So,
Yep. Alrighty, so that is Alien Romulus. Thank you for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow Karina on Instagram at Miss Karina Renee, and you can follow me on social media at Jamie Ups Media and at Ario Magazine. The commentary booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Ups Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Ups Media. The following people supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support.